The chandeliers at the Fairmont Hotel sparkled like suspended galaxies, casting prismatic light across the crowd of San Francisco's elite. I smoothed my simple black dress, a clearance rack find I'd altered myself, and tried not to feel like a sparrow among peacocks. "Don't embarrass the family," Aunt Patricia hissed in my ear, her breath heavy with gin despite the evening having just begun. Her fingers dug into my arm like talons. "Just sit quietly and try to look presentable. And for God's sake, don't mention that little computer thing you do." "It's called software development," I murmured, but she'd already turned away to air-kiss someone wearing more diamonds than a jewelry store window. I nodded, swallowing the familiar sting. This was why I'd stopped attending family events 3 years ago. But tonight was different. Tonight was the Children's Hospital Charity Gala, and my cousin Melissa was being honored for organizing it. Family solidarity was mandatory, as Aunt Patricia had reminded me 17 times. "Victoria," my cousin Melissa glided over in a designer gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. "You actually came. How brave of you." Her eyes swept over my dress with practiced disdain. "Still shopping at discount stores, I see. Still judging people by their clothes, I see," I replied sweetly. Her smile tightened. "Well, at least try to mingle appropriately. These are important people. Real professionals, not like your little freelance, whatever it is you do now." The Weatherbees are here." Melissa squealed, already moving past me. "They donated $50,000 last year." I found my assigned seat at table 12, the family table, strategically placed not too close to the stage. That would imply importance, but not so far back as to suggest insignificance. Uncle Richard was already there, scrolling through his phone. "Victoria." He barely glanced up. "How's the job search going?" "I'm not searching for a job." "I have. Patricia mentioned she could get you an interview at her company. Receptionist work. Stable. Benefits." He finally looked at me. "You can't live on pipe dreams forever." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. 2 years ago, I'd tried to explain my work to him. I'd told him about the app I'd developed, the patents I held, the company I'd built from my studio apartment. He'd patted my head like I was still 12 and told me to get a real job. The ballroom filled with Silicon Valley's who's who. Tech executives, venture capitalists, old money families, new money entrepreneurs. I recognized several of them, not from family connections, but from pitch meetings, conferences, and cap table negotiations they'd never know I'd been part of. "Is this seat taken?" A familiar voice made me look up. Marcus Thompson, CEO of one of the Valley's most successful venture firms, stood beside the empty chair next to mine. "It's all yours," I managed, praying he wouldn't recognize me. "Have we met?" He studied my face. "You look familiar." "I just have one of those faces," I said quickly. Aunt Patricia materialized with the grace of a battleship. "Mr. Thompson, what an honor. I'm Patricia Shaw, Melissa's mother, the organizer of this wonderful event." She shot me a warning look. "This is my niece, Victoria. She's between opportunities at the moment." "Ah." Marcus's polite smile held a hint of confusion as he looked between us. "Well, it's nice to meet you both." The evening progressed with the usual parade of speeches, self-congratulation, and competitive philanthropy disguised as altruism. I pushed my overpriced salmon around my plate and counted the minutes until I could politely escape. "The auction will begin shortly," Melissa announced from the podium, glowing in the spotlight. "But first, I want to thank everyone for making this evening possible. Your generosity will help thousands of children receive the medical care they desperately need." Applause rippled through the room. Uncle Richard leaned over to his golf buddy. "Melissa's always been the achiever in the family. Took after Patricia. Not like some people who waste their potential." I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment to breathe. In the mirror, I saw what they saw, a 30-year-old woman in a $40 dress, whose family believed she was a failure. They didn't know about the 18-hour days, the rejected pitches that led to accepted ones, the code written at 3 a.m. that solved problems they couldn't even understand. When I returned, the auction was in full swing. A weekend in Napa went for $30,000. A Tesla for $90,000. Jewelry, trips, experiences. All bid on with the casual ease of people for whom money was just numbers on a screen. "Before we conclude," the auctioneer said, "we have an announcement. As you know, every year we recognize our most generous donors. This year, we've had an anonymous benefactor who has contributed throughout our campaign." Aunt Patricia preened. She'd probably donated her usual $25,000, Enough to maintain status, but not enough to strain the portfolio. This donor, the auctioneer continued, has requested to remain anonymous until tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm thrilled to announce that our largest individual donor, contributing $2 million to the Children's Hospital, has agreed to reveal herself. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. $2 million was serious money, even here. Please join me in thanking Ms. Victoria Shaw. The spotlight swung to table 12. To me, the silence was deafening. Aunt Patricia's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor in a cascade of crystal and Dom Perignon. Uncle Richard's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Melissa stood frozen at the podium, her perfect smile cracking like old paint. There must be some mistake, Aunt Patricia sputtered. Victoria doesn't have, she can't. But Marcus Thompson was already on his feet, applauding. I knew I recognized you. You're V. Shaw. You created Terraform Technologies. The room erupted. Suddenly, everyone wanted to shake my hand, to congratulate me, to mention their own charitable giving. I stood on shaking legs, making my way to the podium through a sea of faces, some admiring, some calculating, some, my family's, still frozen in shock. At the microphone, I looked out at the crowd. Thank you. I've been fortunate enough to build something successful, and I believe in giving back. The Children's Hospital does incredible work. I've seen it firsthand. They saved my best friend's daughter 2 years ago. No child should suffer because their family can't afford treatment. My niece, Aunt Patricia said loudly, suddenly by my side, her arm around me. We're so proud of her. She's always been the star of our family. I gently removed her arm. Actually, I need to thank my family. They're constant reminders that I was wasting my life, that I needed to get a real job, that I was an embarrassment. They motivated me every single day. Every time they told me I'd fail, I worked harder. The room went quiet again. This wasn't the gracious speech they expected. But mostly, I continued, I want to thank the children at this hospital. They fight battles most of us can't imagine, with more courage than any adult I know. They deserve every penny we can give them. The applause this time was genuine. I returned to my table, where my family sat like statues. $2 million, Uncle Richard said faintly. How? The little computer thing I do? I said calmly. It's a sustainable technology company with a current valuation of $200 million. We're closing our Series C next month at double that. Why didn't you tell us? Melissa demanded, her face flushed. All these years letting us think. I tried. Remember Christmas 3 years ago? I attempted to explain my first patent, and you all laughed. Aunt Patricia said I should focus on finding a husband instead of playing with computers. Uncle Richard offered to pay for me to go to secretary school. We were trying to help, Aunt Patricia protested. You were living in that awful apartment, wearing second-hand clothes. I was bootstrapping a company. Every dollar went back into the business. And you weren't trying to help. You were trying to force me into your definition of success. Marcus Thompson leaned over. If you're closing Series C, we should talk. My firm would love to be involved. I handed him my card. My real card. Not the generic ones I carried to family events. Call my office Monday. The rest of the evening was a blur. Family members who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly remembered how close we'd always been. Aunt Patricia told everyone within earshot about how she'd always known I was special, how she'd nurtured my talents. But it was Melissa who surprised me. She found me on the terrace later, where I'd escaped for air. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I've been awful to you. I studied her face, looking for the catch. Why the change of heart? Because I realized something tonight. I've spent my whole life doing what Mom wanted. The right schools, the right husband, the right charity work. And you did what you wanted, despite all of us telling you not to. It wasn't easy, I admitted. But you did it anyway. She twisted her wedding ring, the one from her society marriage to a man she barely tolerated. I organize these galas, raise money, smile for cameras. But I've never created anything. Never built anything. Never risked anything. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle below. It's not too late, I said finally. You're only 32. Maybe. She smiled sadly. You know what the ironic part is? Mom's been bragging about you to her friends for months. She saw an article about your company in TechCrunch. She just couldn't admit to you that she was wrong. Pride's expensive, I said. It cost us 3 years of holidays together. Will you come to Christmas this year? She asked. I promise I'll run interference with Mom. I laughed. We'll see. Later, as the gala wound down, I found myself back at table 12. Uncle Richard was signing his own auction bid, $50,000 for a golf package. "Victoria," he said awkwardly. I apologize. For earlier. For everything, really. "Thank you," I said, meaning it. "That company of yours," he continued. "If you ever need investors." "I'll keep that in mind," I said diplomatically. Aunt Patricia appeared one last time, clutching her rescue champagne. "You could have told us," she said, a note of hurt creeping into her voice. "We're family. Family tells each other to sit quietly and not embarrass them," I reminded her. "Family judges $40 dresses and career choices they don't understand. You want to be proud of me now because of a number on a check. But I'm the same person I was an hour ago, the same person I was 3 years ago when you said I was wasting my life." Her face crumpled slightly. For the first time in my life, Aunt Patricia looked vulnerable. I thought I was helping. My parents said the same things to me, pushed me the same way. I became a lawyer because they said teaching was beneath us. I suppose I thought I was preparing you for the real world. The real world is what we make it, I said gently. Not what others expect it to be. As I walked out of the Fairmont that night, past the luxury cars and society photographers, I thought about success and family, about expectations and reality. The $2 million was just money I was fortunate enough to have and happy to give. But the look on Aunt Patricia's face when she realized her family disappointment was actually their biggest success? That was priceless. My phone buzzed with texts. Other entrepreneurs who'd been at the gala, potential partners, reporters who'd gotten wind of the story. Tomorrow, I'd deal with all of it. But tonight, I was going home to my awful apartment. The same one where I'd written the code that started everything. To eat takeout and video chat with the team that had believed in me when my own family hadn't. Because success, I'd learned, wasn't about champagne glasses and designer dresses. It wasn't about validation from people who'd already decided your worth. It was about building something meaningful, helping where you could, and surrounding yourself with people who saw your potential even when you were just a woman in a $40 dress with a dream and a laptop. The December air was crisp and full of possibilities. Somewhere in the city, a child at the hospital would get treatment because of tonight's donations. And somewhere else, maybe, a family would think twice before telling someone their dreams were too big. I smiled and hailed a cab. Tomorrow, I had a company to run and a Series C to close. But tonight, I was just Victoria Shaw, no longer sitting quietly, no longer worried about embarrassing anyone, and definitely no longer anonymous.